This is David Icke. And you see, in Britain, David Icke was a well-known TV presenter. Very well known. And then in about 1990, he, in the eyes of the public, went mad. Got spiritual, got into New Age religion, started to talk about conspiracy theory, and basically made a fool of himself and then vanished. Well, none of that, in fact, is true, but that's the public view of David Icke. Everybody laughs at David Icke until they start to look at some of what David Icke actually was saying 20 years ago. And people like Icke have been warning us about microchipping, ID schemes, New World Order, One World Governments. He even said it was very likely there would be a huge war on terror begun by a huge terrorist atrocity in America. It's actually quite scary how much Icke seemed to know. I don't think it was psychic. He just was looking at the way things were going and working out what was likely to happen. But of course, everybody laughed back then, but now they can see this world coming true before our eyes. Maybe this needs some re-evaluation. But the problem some people have with David Icke, and for some it is a big problem, is that he has one belief that is seen by many as being one step too far. And that is, as some of you will already know, his belief that the British royal family are in fact extraterrestrial lizards. And that the presidents of the United States will carry an extraterrestrial gene. Well, for some people this is too much. This is, for them, all the evidence they need, that Icke is mad. And yeah, it's a bit extreme. But when you look at it more closely, there are some interesting aspects to this theory, one of which is this. If you take the idea of the extraterrestrial gene out of the picture, it still sort of makes some sense. So, the general belief is that millions of years ago, maybe thousands of years ago perhaps, extraterrestrial beings came to Earth and interbred with mankind. And they seeded a gene that's been carried on through the generations, maintaining a ruling elite, which has carried on down to us still today. And that elite maintained its bloodlines, made sure that nothing ever interferes with it, and though it goes quiet in some generations, it always resurfaces on top. That's the idea. But if you take even the idea of an extraterrestrial gene out of the picture, the fact is, there is clear evidence. Monarchies, rich dynasties, influential families, they maintain their bloodlines very carefully. They do. So, just as a metaphor, if you like, an analogy, there is still an element of truth to this. And it is also a fact that all presidents of the United States are generally quite close blood relatives to the British royal family. The British royal family seem to play more of a part in this ruling elite than it may at first appear. Did you also know that, for instance, President Obama is eighth cousin to Dick Cheney, George W. Bush's second in command? Everybody's in the club, they're all linked. You don't get to be in a position of power unless you are the right people, belonging to the right secret society. Whether it be Skull and Bones, the Shriners, Phi Kappa, Beta, the Bohemian Club, Freemasonry at the top degrees, whatever it may be, there are links between, clearly, organisations that do not let anybody in who is an outsider. Now, the thing about this is, it's very easy to laugh at the idea of the extraterrestrial gene, but there are myths and legends around the world that speak this story again and again, whether it be Sumerian, Egyptian, or indeed, even if you read the Bible. And if you go to chapter 6 of the book of Genesis, it very clearly states that a race of beings, traditionally shown as a race of giants, from the stars, calling themselves the sons of God, came down, looked at the daughters of men, saw they were pleasing, and basically interbred with them and gave birth to a hybrid race known as the Nephilim. And it clearly states that the Nephilim carried on very powerful even afterwards, and that they maintained their power as the generations have gone on since. This is the Bible. So this same story resurfaces in every single myth and legend. And it makes you wonder, maybe there could be a grain of truth to it somewhere down the line. If you go a few stanzas away from that in the Bible, you come to the story of the Tower of Babel. And this is where mankind was getting very advanced, to the point where they were building a tower that rivaled the works of God. And the Old Testament God didn't like this very much. So he comes down and observes what they are doing. And he says, in the Bible, he says, if mankind carries on like this, they will become as powerful as I am. Well, he didn't want that. So what he did was he struck down the people working on the tower with the inability to communicate with each other. Suddenly they found themselves all talking in different languages they couldn't communicate. So they had to stop work on the tower and go off and create their own communities around the world instead. It's a classic divide and rule policy. But some see this as a metaphor for the story of Atlantis, or Lemuria, or Mu. And again, through all the myths and legends, they speak of one enlightened civilization that came before all others, which somehow was destroyed or broke up, and the survivors seeded other civilizations around the world, like, in many people's beliefs, the Egyptians. Some people see the Egyptian civilization at its highest point as a direct remnant of the Atlanteans, whatever word you want to give to whoever the Atlanteans really were. And certainly there are some recurring symbols that come up again and again and again through ancient times right through to modern, and the pyramid is a fine example. And it makes you wonder if there is some thread, some recurring thread of ancient knowledge which is still very important to our world today. Over on another continent many centuries later, of course, in South America, the Maya, then the Aztecs, had pyramids again. And the classic conspiracy theorist cliche, but it's true, the dollar bill, which of course shows you the all-seeing eye on the pyramid, the illumined ones at the top, and here's all us down here at the bottom. And it's kind of a statement of power. The pyramid has very mystical meanings, but it also says, hey, we're at the top, you're at the bottom, know your place. And the pyramid is used again and again as a statement of power, even in modern architecture. So we have it all over the dollar bill. You can go to Paris and of course find now glass pyramids at the Louvre. In London, we have on the top of Canary Wharf Tower, at the heart of the financial capital of London, a pyramid. And if you follow the lines down to the ground and imagine the rest of the pyramid, it gives you the exact dimensions of the Great Pyramid of Giza. So bang in the middle of London, we have a giant pyramid, which is aligned, by the way, with the giant pyramids of Giza. That's not chance. It's meaningful to those who are putting these symbols of power there. And